Hi, I'm Eric Orange, and I'm here today for the experience of a lifetime. The Underground Railroad Museum of Burlington County has set up this event to try and approach what it might have been like to be a part of the Underground Railroad, to actually be a runaway and going to a strange place where you can trust no one, but you have to trust someone. In the woods, in the swamps, going from house to house, longing for freedom, and taking that trek. And today we're gonna have people, they're gonna walk 3.5 miles in the heat. It's buggy, it's gonna be a long walk, but at the end they get to go to Timbuctoo and experience what that might have been like back in their day, where you can finally get to some place where the anxiety lets down and you have your people that you can trust and have that little taste of freedom.
Good, I haven't thought about it yet.
Somebody pulled up and parked, and I walked up to you and I said, "Follow me quickly," and you all did. Why? Because I'm dressed funny? Because I spoke authoritatively? It looked like you don't know where you're going, so you hope I do?
Right.
That coupled with the flash.
Right. So imagine a world where you're passing through country where you know no one. You're not safe. Absolutely not safe. You can't trust anyone, but you have to trust someone. And someone comes up to you and says, "Come with me." What do you do? And it's a dire dilemma that hundreds, thousands of runaways who were seeking freedom had to face on that long journey. If you can imagine, if someone told you you had to walk from Maryland or Virginia to Canada, you would look at it, and you're going to do it in the dark, and you're not going to know where you're going, and there are people looking to do you harm, and it's still not a deterrent. You decide you're going, and you end up going. Is there anybody here familiar with William Still? A few people? Okay, so I'll tell you, for those who aren't familiar with William Still, that's the best way to get us started. William Still, known around here as the father of the Underground Railroad. And he grew up not far from here in Burlington County. He's one of the great stories we have here in Burlington County. But he grew up in Chemung Township. And by the time he was 18 years old, he had taught himself to read and write. And he was working in Philadelphia. He got a job working as a clerk in an office. But what he was really doing was working for the Anti-Slavery Society. And what he did that made him particularly brave was he kept a journal, he kept a logbook. And when a runaway would come into his office, he would get that logbook out and he would write "arrived" and the date and the time. And he would interview them. Where were you enslaved? Did you have any brothers or sisters? Do you know who your parents were? Things like that. And of course, the reason that's brave is because if he was caught, he could be prosecuted for every one of those names in that book. So again, very brave. So as it happens, he was in his office one day, tending to business, and a runaway came in, and he got out the book, and he writes "arrived." And he starts talking to the guy. And he quickly realizes that he's talking to his very own brother, whom he's never met. But as he's talking to him, he's giving him all the answers to his family. And the way this happens is their mother, Charity Still, was enslaved on the eastern shore of Maryland. And the first time she tried to escape, she had 4 children with her, and she was quickly caught and sent back. So the next time she decided to escape, she had to make this horrific choice of leaving the 2 older boys behind while she escaped with her 2 young daughters, which she did successfully. She made it to Chemung Township, where she was reunited with her husband, who had previously bought his own freedom, and they went on to have 14 more children. Yes, the poor woman, she hasn't been through enough. 14 more children, and here was the youngest, William, talking to Peter, the older brother. And of course you can imagine a mother after 40 years, this wonderful reunion with her oldest child. And of course, if you go home and you Google still family or reunion, you'll get the story I just told you, but you'll also get wonderful pictures of a bunch of people sitting around eating barbecue, listening to music, because the still family, there's so many now, but they still get together and celebrate that reunion. So, again, follow me. Hopefully.
The what? Yeah. Yes.
I explained to Debbie Price, who came up with this idea and has really pulled it off wonderfully. She told me I want to do a Juneteenth event out in the state park. And I said, okay, so June, it's going to be really hot. I said 3.5 miles, that's a really long walk. People are going to be exhausted. And I said the flies out there at that time of year are unrelenting. And she said, good. I want all that. Yes, I want people to feel this.
Oh yeah, I did feel it.
Yes. So
we're not done.
So I'm going to have everybody just do a quick about face. And here we are along the banks of the mighty Rancocas Creek. Early on, it was a conduit for trade for the Native Americans. This was their highway. This is what connected village to village. It allowed them, there were certainly trails, but allowed them to transport commodities. If there was a certain section of the creek that had a lot of furs and another section of the creek that had good stone for making arrowheads, there would be trade back and forth. By the time people were dressing like me as Quakers, the Europeans had settled along here in what they called plantations. We're going to end up at one of the parts of that is Rogers Millbrook Plantation. And again, it was a conduit for business for them. They could put their commodities in a boat here on the Rancocas and end up not very long in Philadelphia. And then, by the time of the Underground Railroad, it's a conduit to freedom. Steamships routinely traveled along the Rancocas, starting in Lumberton and Hainesport, and also Mount Holly, and made daily trips to Philadelphia. And it certainly stopped in Timbuctoo, which at that time was along the Rancocas Creek. It's not so much anymore, but we've looked at, and one of the founders of Timbuctoo was a guy named King David Parker, is what they called him. He was one of the originals. And they were selling off some of his property after he had passed away. And it says, from a stone as the creek once ran. So during his lifetime, either by nature or we know sometimes how the way infrastructure works in marginalized community, the creek may have been taken away from them and re-engineered to make it better for business. But yeah, the mighty Rancocas Creek. And just to touch on the Native Americans a little bit, some of you may remember when we used to have Native American festivals here.
Oh, yes.
And the chief, this is where the chief's house was, up on this level land here. He's passed away. It might be 20, 25 years now. But I can't think of a more beautiful place to have a house. And again, looking out over the Rancocas Creek and imagining, you know, the thousands of years of history for the Lenape here, again, along the Rancocas Creek. It defies sometimes thought.
What exactly happened to the reservation again?
So the chief passed away, and he was really the driving force behind all the events and really keeping it going. And they had a little bit of trouble keeping it going, but there had been talk since he passed away of people getting together and bringing that back. And we're always hopeful. And of course, the state park isn't going anywhere. So again, we're hopeful. We hope that happens. Young and fit, and no walk is too arduous for them. They're looking for that challenge. There's older people, younger people. Charity still with 4 children, 2 young girls, trying to work their way, and the group keeps moving. Everybody knows Harriet Tubman ran a tight ship. Because she understood the danger and what the cost was. But we don't leave anybody behind, right? We bring everybody as a group along with us. So
You'll have to tell them again. Oh, okay.
device in case of emergency, that's fine. Yeah, there's going to be some places where we're going to end up in single file as we go through, certainly. So the question is, what do you do if you meet someone on the road? If there's someone coming the other way? There's not a lot of us that are trailblazers these days, but the people that were running for their lives, were escaping, could read the land. They would know, just like you know what exit you're going to get off before you get there, they were constantly looking for, what will I do if? And if you had a good conductor, they could help as well. So I'll demonstrate a hiding place, if you will. Everybody see it?
Where? Oh, you're demonstrating.
Stay where you are.
It's a hiding place.
Where'd he go?
That was very good.
No snakes. You know, we talk about the Quakers being the first abolitionists. The enslaved were the first abolitionists. And they would prepare, and they would, again, read the land. Come in here, I'm going there. We're just lucky that we have that there. And Debbie thought that was cool too, that there was this hiding place that you really can't see.
Right. Yeah. Right. Good.
Watch your step as we approach the bridge.
Yeah, keep on coming across. We can get too deep here if you like. Keep coming a little bit farther. I'm sorry, let me get over here. Okay, everybody, total silence for just a minute. What do you hear?
Music. That was silent.
That's Timbuctoo, right? But imagine you can't just walk into Timbuctoo. You can't come down Rancocas Road. Slave catchers, the dreaded George Alberti, came to Timbuctoo on a number of occasions. So no place was safe. But imagine you're close enough, you can hear the music, you can smell the cooking, and you're starving, and you're starving for freedom. But you have to obey the rules. You have to stay where they told you. They know what they're doing. They know how this works. And so while we're not that far from Timbuctoo, we're only halfway there. Bad.
Look at that.
I like that. I think that expresses our thoughts. Woo!
Look at the size of this.
Feels good though.
Isn't it?
That's good.
Have just a few more coming. How's everybody doing?
All right, getting the workout.
All right, we're on the downside, more or less.
Quite a few.
This is our spirit tree. So I haven't gotten an exact date on it, more than 250 years old. But majestic certainly. And there's different stories behind what people would call spirit trees. If you were a black person and you died, you couldn't afford a stone that was chiseled with your name and the dates and everything like that. A wooden cross or a wooden memorial wouldn't last very long. But if you planted an oak tree where a loved one had passed away, it's there for centuries perhaps. It happened a lot. I'll tell you one story, which I always have trouble getting through, so excuse me. There was a man in 1705 who lived on High Street in Burlington, and he was brought to court for beating his woman slave to death. And the eyewitness accounts are dreadful. And in fact, when I do my talk on this anymore, I can't read it. I ask other people if they're willing to read it. I just can't get through it. But what this woman endured, dreadful. And the way justice was back then, the man was found innocent of causing her death, but guilty of having her buried without an inquest. And he was ordered to pay court costs and fines. So literally just walked away. And right on High Street, I mean, right in the middle of the city, right in the middle of the town. So when we think about spirit trees like this, that's where my mind goes. Let's hold up here just for a minute to see if the tail end catches up a little bit. It's one of those you could say, you can't get lost, just follow your nose. First thing you do is come to a fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Rogers Millbrook Plantation. This was the home of William Rogers, and he was a contemporary of John Woolman. And John Woolman was the first white Quaker abolitionist. And he only lived about a mile, less than 2 miles from this spot. And John Woolman is famous for walking from neighbor to neighbor, imploring them to free their slaves. We don't know if William Rogers had slaves at that time. We do know that he had servants and certainly farm labor, farm help. This particular site was actually raided by the British in 1778 when the British evacuated Philadelphia and moved through Burlington County on the way to the Battle of Monmouth, plundering their way across Burlington County, raiding farms just like this. And William Rogers actually filed a war damage claim that was still on file, where he listed exactly what was stolen and destroyed. You know, 1 good cow, 2 fat sheep. And we always say because it would be silly to steal skinny ones. But the Rancocas Creek is just through these trees, and this was really a 3-story if you counted the attic, 4 stories if you counted the basement. Lovely brick Quaker house. And you can see some of the bricks behind you have been stacked up. And we recently got permission from the State Historic Preservation Office to name this site as a historic site, a state and national historic site. So a little more work to do, but eventually it will be. And again, because we just don't know much about the Underground Railroad, because of course it was underground and everything was a secret, it is possible that it could have been part of that. Again, Mr. Rogers was a Quaker, so yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So if it was a plantation,
did you say he
what
knew?
was he growing?
He grew everything. Wheat, produce, and animals of all kinds, chickens, turkeys, and again, we know that from the war damage claim, what the British, it read like a menu. And that's exactly what it was. The British were bringing everything back to Mount Holly to feed 20,000 British were waiting in Mount Holly, again, on their way to the Battle of Monmouth. So yeah, just extraordinary stories all over Burlington County. And we're going to be exiting on the old road, and you'll be able to see that it's worn 2 feet deeper than the surrounding area. from the carriages and horses that came
Yeah, I'll just, yeah.
Some of my older colleagues here are familiar with a man named Richie Havens. Richie Havens sang at Woodstock Freedom, and he also did Follow the Drinking Gourd. Now, who can tell me what Follow the Drinking Gourd means? No. It meant that while you were escaping to freedom, the drinking gourd was the Big Dipper. And as long as you kept the Big Dipper in front of you and on your right, you were headed north. So they used symbolic language to help people, a secret language in effect, to help people find their way to freedom. So we're about to enter, and we are on the downside here. We are almost there. And I will tell you, at the end of what we're calling the Tunnel to Freedom, which you'll see here, just like back then, people were willing to step up and help, whether it was, you know, having someone stay in your barn and hide out or secret them away. Here at the end of the state park, the Sloan family was gracious enough to let us use their front yard and pass through, and we're so gracious and enthusiastic, and we are grateful for their help. So the Tunnel to Freedom, and then Timbuctoo.
Timbuktu. As Bugs Bunny say, this is not Timbuktu.